Hey there, I'm CrimsenOverlord. Today I'm giving my first impressions of Final Fantasy XIII. Why am I giving a first impression of a game that's 2 years old? Because this is the first time I've played it. I've played this game for about 3 hours so far, which factoring in cutscenes is actually more like an hour and a half. The first thing I want to say about this game is don't believe the hype. By hype I mean all the talk about this game being terrible and boring that floats around the internet. I've heard a lot of talk, this is a bad game, it takes 30 hours for it to become fun, whatever, and I don't know, you don't really hear any praise for this game. In fact, all the bad stuff that people talk about this game supposedly was used to make a lot of changes for the for 13.2 for the sequel, which there's a couple things that I can understand, but I don't know. So the first thing I want to talk about is the good things that people have told me about this game. It's pretty. That's the only thing anybody's ever told me about this game that was positive, and I completely agree. This is one of the prettiest games on the Xbox 360, if not the prettiest, depending on your preference of art style. But it is a very beautiful game. As for other good stuff about this game that I've seen in the first 3 hours, so far the story seems about as good as most other Final Fantasies, which means it's enjoyable. It's not their best work so far, but I've only played it for a few hours, so it might open up more. But it's pretty enjoyable so far. The characters are pretty expressive and quirky, which even when they're explaining something kind of dull, like the backstory or whatever, you the way they talk and the way they move keeps the dialogue from getting boring, which you can definitely see in the cutscenes. You can watch, actually just watching the video that you're watching, you can kind of see how expressive and quirky they are. The music is great. It's good music. In fact, at times it reminds me of Final Fantasy Tactics music, which had a pretty good soundtrack all on its own. And then of course there's other unique music to this game. At one point, I think I heard it sounded like somebody playing a harmonica sitting around a campfire. It's like hobo music. I don't know how you describe it, but it's pretty good. It fits with the mood most of the time. One drawback with the music is that so far there's only one battle theme, and it's the music from the trailer. And it gets a little repetitive. I wish there were 2 or 3 like in the other games, or that it was more old school battle music, because it doesn't really fit the mood of a battle. But I guess that's the first bad thing that I've said about this game so far. But for other bad things about this game, my biggest problem with this game is the camera. This camera in this game moves like a drunken hippo. I swear. I most of the time I play, I just turn my character and then click the reset camera button, so that it's behind me again instead of moving the camera, because it's so weird, it's sluggish, and I don't know, it was a terrible camera. Another bad thing, and this may just be me, is the character Vanille. I think she has a mental deficiency. I don't know. At first I thought it was just the voice actress, like, doing a bad job or something, and I was gonna let it go. But the way that they have her, like, animated, and, some of her dialogue, I think they made her mentally retarded on purpose. which
Yeah,
seems a little
think so.
odd. Because, I mean, it seems like they were trying to make her quirky, but, like, I think they were trying to make her like Riku 2.0, but they ended up making her like Riku after 3 or 4 concussions. And it drives me nuts.
Heroes don't run from
Alright, so combat. Not a terrible combat system, but there's a few things about the combat system that they still haven't taught me that I know I can do from having seen like the trailer and some footage from like E3 or whatever. There's a couple things I know you're supposed to be able to do, but after 3 hours I still haven't been given a tutorial to teach me how to do it. I don't know if they expect me to figure it out on my own, or if the tutorial is so long that they're just not done with it yet.
How about this?
And after about an hour and a half of gameplay, you know, not cutscenes, I think I spent over an hour of that in combat, which was a problem because I don't want to be in combat the entire game. I like to explore and take in the scenery and stuff. So I hope that there's a little bit less combat as time goes on. So far, yeah, apparently you can't run from a battle once it starts, which is terrible. I mean, it has something to do with the way that the battle starts, because you'd be right next to the character and it would just start again anyway if you ran. But avoiding enemies basically means you can't take in the scenery. You're planning routes to avoid enemies, so you can't look at the artwork or anything like that, because I don't want to fight the whole time. And I just now, after like 3 hours of game, you know, of watching cutscenes and playing the game, I just now got the ability to gain experience, which kind of made, you know, over an hour of combat really, really pointless. I mean, there was a couple fights that were tutorial fights that were, you know, good, they were useful, but there was no, I don't know, it felt like it was a wasted, you know, hour of combat. That, you know, there is a joke floating around the internet that I mentioned earlier, you know, about how around hour 30 this game becomes fun. It opens up and whatever. And I personally, I had fun. I started having fun around hour 2. You know, right at the beginning of hour 2. So I started kind of having fun actually with some of a little bit of the combat, and the exploration started getting better there. But I do get the joke now, because you know, if you factor in just the combat and the cutscenes that I've had so far, if it stays relative, then hour 30 for this game is about the equivalent to like hour 4 of a normal game. You know, which is still kind of bad that it would take you 4 hours to get into a game like Splinter Cell or Call of Duty or something like that. But you know, hey, I invested probably 40 hours into Call of Duty 4 before I ever got any good at the multiplayer, so that's not too bad, I guess. Bottom line, the game is a little slow to start, but it's an enjoyable JRPG. And honestly, I hadn't even realized that the first hour had passed until I was well into hour 2. You know, which meant I was already immersed in the story, and it didn't matter that I wasn't really, you know, running around doing fun combat stuff. So if you haven't given it a try yet, I wholeheartedly suggest you do. You know, I'll let you know how I feel once I get to this 3, but, you know, for now, I'm enjoying this game. So, you know, go out, rent it, whatever. It's less than $20 now, so, you know, that's it. I'm CrimsenOverlord, and this has been a First Impressions.
Okay, back
to exploring.